And we're back.
D'avoir.
How's it going, bud?
Yeah, you got funny ear defenders on today. What's going on?
We've got cold ears.
Cold ears.
So,
today, we're going to show you why you shouldn't take bikes apart. Have a little chat, take some stuff off, and realise that this is going to have to go back to bare frame. So, let's get into it and see how far we get. It's a Saturday morning. I'm in on my own. I've got my tea in my dancing donkey mug, and I've got an R1 that needs a load of bits taken off it. So let's get cracking. And I said cracking, not cracking.
good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Here we are again.
I know, it's weird looking at camera. I don't know whether to look at you or camera, you or camera, you or camera.
Look at both.
Look at both.
So,
by the power of YouTube and time lapse, you should have seen where we left it in the last video to how it looks like this.
the magic of YouTube,
The
mate.
magic of YouTube, mate. Me bored with my camera, so hopefully it works and it looks all right. But basically, we have stripped off all the fairing, all the broken bits, the tank, which is fine, the top of the airbox, the nose cone, headlights. I've got the loom hanging out the side, which you can probably see. The throttle, the bars. So this is my pile of stuff to keep. Well, except that.
Don't want that.
So then that's the box of crap. So throttle, clutch perch, switch gear, intake. You need a new intake because this has got a flap in it. So we need to get a new intake, but we'll keep it for now, so at least I know. Dash. So what I think I'll do today is we'll take, while you're filming, we'll take the top of the airbox off, start to get the loom out because we're going to put kit loom on it, and start to strip it down to bare chassis. So we think either Graeme, or that's Mikey's dad, Graeme Hardie, or Paul Messenger, a mate of ours, has got a spare set of pegs. So what you can't do on these is, because they've got spring-loaded foot pegs, we use peg stands to hold the chassis up to drop the shock off.
Yep.
Which are these. But you need fixed foot pegs, so that won't work. So someone's, either Paul or G has got a set of fixed race foot pegs, then I can put foot pegs on it, then I can stand it up on the pegs, drop the wheel, the shock, and the swing arm off. So the swing arm, we lengthen it. What we do there is we take the spindle out and we machine the hole the spindle goes into. So if you think the back of the swing arm looks like that and you've got a hole cut in it to do your chain adjustment, we stretch the back end out by 10 mil. So on the R1, you want to run the arse on the floor and long to stop and wheeling. So we'll do that, and then what we normally do them is acid dip them, and what I did on mine was like use wet and dry paper to, so we take all the paint off it, and then to give it like a finish on the smooth side of the swing arm. Ignore that bit because that's a sticker. But like to rough it up, and then we lacquer it. So if you go back and look at my Instagram and look at the photos of my R1, it looks like a billet swing arm. It looks really trick. It just breaks the colour up a little bit, so we'll do that. The subframe is broken.
It's a bit wobbly.
It is a bit wobbly. We normally cut them off. I normally cut them off at the support bar because you don't run that bit. But we'll see how bad it is and see if we can find a donor one to go on it.
Yep.
I'll feel a little bit better. The only reason I'm a bit worried is because if you look at the support bar, it's out of line. So I'm wondering whether the back swing arm's tweaked. The yoke goes, we get rid of this, put a race yoke on because we don't run the ignition switch. So we'll take this off. I've got one loose bar because the other one snapped. Clock's off, intake's off, mudguard's off. We keep the wheel, the discs will go, we keep the calipers, we'll put K-Tech in the front forks, we'll put K-Tech shock in it. Josh wants to have the frame, clean the frame and probably paint it. And then drop motor out because that's the biggest problem, which we'll get into in a minute. So let's get some tools out.
Let's get busy.
So the reason I didn't I've taken the airbox lid off, which has the secondary ejectors, but the reason I didn't drop this out is because I want to show. So they've got variable stacks, and a lot of bikes have now, and if you know what it is, you know what it does. But if you don't know, then it's got long trumpets on, and they've got a motor and a connector on them, and the ECU will open the stacks. So at low RPM, it runs long stacks to give you torque, and then at high RPM, it opens the stacks up, and then you've got short stack, which makes more top end, and it's all about the reversion off the back of the valve. So you've got adjustable stacks, so helps make power. So if they get stuck, you'll see it on a dyno, or you'll feel it if you kind of know what you're feeling for. But so yeah, just a little trick bit inside the airbox really. It's got that little motor that just drives the arm to lift them up and down.
Cool.
Yeah, what they do, mate, to like this has all come from Superbikes over the years, because obviously it comes down to be homologated. So yeah, it is trick, to be fair. So throttle bodies. So you've got throttle driven, right, which just drives a sensor, and then the sensor feeds back to the ECU. So that's throttle position sensor. The sensor drives back to the ECU, and then the ECU controls this butterfly, and then that butterfly then controls the what the butterflies are actually doing. There is a mechanical element to it as well, a lock, like a limpo mode really. Cardinal sin, mate. So this is where now later stuff starts to show up, how it's moved on and so quick. I'll run into what mine has got different to this, but basically this has got a set of throttle cables, right, which moves this shaft, which goes to a throttle position sensor. That throttle position sensor feeds to the ECU, and then the ECU controls this drive-by-wire motor. So that drive-by-wire motor controls all 4 throttles at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Where bikes have got to now, especially my BMW, it's got split throttles. So it's got 2 drive-by-wire motors, and my bike can open 2 throttles separate to the other. And my bike can open one pair of cylinders up to 80% over the other. And it's all tuned inside ECU. And what that gives you is, right when you're on the edge of the tyre and you're decked out and you're trying to just feel that positive drive, you open all 4 at once, and it can give you a kick of torque, and it can unset chassis. So by putting a load of retard into it, and then just opening 2 throttle butterflies to get airflow moving through the engine, you can come onto the tyre really gently. So if you start listening to bikes now, if you watch like World Superbikes, they have stopped it, so I'll have to remind myself. But you go back a couple of seasons, and like the World Superbikes right on the edge of tyre, they'd make a weird noise. Now the stock 1000 BMWs are allowed it because it's inside the kit ECUs. I don't think they're allowed it in BSB because not all manufacturers have got it.
Yeah.
But it'll be right on the edge of the tyre, and my bike sounds like it's misfiring. And then as you stand the bike up more and more, then one throttle will start to open and open and open and open and open. It gets to a certain point, and then the other one will go, all right, we're going now, and then the other one will catch up to meet it. And that's all to do with edge grip and what the bike does on the edge of the tyre. And that's 5 years old. So you think how much we've jumped in 5 years. Yeah. So set of throttles, 4 injectors. We have got 4 uppers as well. So we split between lower and upper. Not DIs, port injection. So we shall take some plugs off because I want to start taking this loom out and get cracking on it like. So we had really good response off the other video, to be fair, didn't we?
We had a great response, yeah.
Done quite well. So
yeah.
I think Josh was quite chuffed. I put it on my Instagram. I found the video of that crash I was talking about at Knockhill.
Right, okay.
So I found that where he's upside down. Hang on, let me. You'll have to put it in. I send it to you, but it's on my phone, so.
Well, we can probably watch it on the phone, and we can also drop it in.
Have some of that, mate.
Oh my goodness.
Look at it. The tank's pouring fuel on his ass. So that was, I think that was 2007, 2008. His brother is a walking encyclopedia of the shit Josh has done. So what we need is Ali to comment here.
Yes.
But I was trying to think of like good things and funny things to say about him. So he's Thruxton 2010, or 2010 he won British Superstock 600 Championship. But Thruxton, which was like the second round, oh mate, he was on fire. So he I think he still holds the record of like the biggest lead after the first lap. It's like 2.6 seconds from standing start.
It's impressive.
But I was trying to think of funny stuff. So basically, Josh is about to get married to a girl called Becky Bevan. They've been together since like the dawn of time. And her dad was basically the fast lad at the club we all grew up in. So we all come through NG motorcycle club. And Phil was like, especially at like Pembury, he's a Welsh lad, like no one could touch him. So when Josh come on the scene, it was a little, they obviously got on because he was dating his daughter, but there's a little bit of pride there, like.
Yep.
So anyway, 2010, we go Cadwell. I can't remember what, I think Josh got pole. This was a club meeting. Josh got pole and I think Phil was second and I was third. And Josh went off on a warm-up lap, mate. It was quite late in the day on a warm-up lap, like a fucking scolded cat. He went mental, right? He come to this race like he wanted to smash his future father-in-law. Anyway, if you know Cadwell, you go around Chris Curve at the top and then you go through the gooseneck. And it was warm-up lap, so I wasn't trying to keep up with him. But by the time I got to gooseneck, Josh had crashed. So he'd gone through the left. And I don't know whether he'd lost the front through the left or whether he'd run onto grass and lost on the grass, right? But that's not the funny bit. The funny bit was that R6 at that point, it was kind of like a module fairing. It was all joined in one, and it had torn the belly pan and the side panels all off at one. So it was like one big lower fairing. And it's right by him, and he picks this fairing up, and in anger, he throws this fairing, like, and the wind takes it, and it goes off like a kite, mate. This fairing's off down a hill, and he's gone like that. And like walked after this fairing. Honest to God, the bike was that night. I remember being, because we were all in the same morning together. We were literally like this, unbolting bits and just putting it in a skip. Oh yeah. Then Marshall come back later that night with his ECU. It had torn it off the bike, right? And it just stuff like that. Now obviously it's his father-in-law, so they're like really close to that now. But mate, it's just funny. Like at the time, that was hilarious. Just what the fairing did, like he just had to chase after it. But so what we're trying to do here is get the loom out, because even now like stuff these days, the new stuff these days, it's all modular. Yeah. So like when we build so for example, when a Superbikes are built or a Supersport bike's built, there'll be like a big connector here, like a big Autosport, and we literally just undo it and that drops the engine out with the engine loom. And then you've got a chassis loom and you've got a dash loom and it all connects. Whereas factory ECUs or factory looms, look, are all joined together with this horrible bloody tape. So, I mean, look, I've unthreaded that from down here, right, round here, up here, and that's all for the bloody key, look. So that's to take that bit off. Right. So it just turns into a bit of a mission. This is what's called the pair valve in the top, right? So this lets oxygen, that little valve lets oxygen into the exhaust ports at certain points, and that allows you to heat the cat up. So it's like on a car what you'd call secondary air, and that helps with emissions. So on a race bike, we block all that off. So we get rid of that. So I'm just trying to get this coil off. What have I got over here, Nate? Another zip tie.
We've got a bit of background noise there. I think that's
Juden washing.
Yep.
Trying to get his snow foamer working, I think, and he still.
I think so, yeah.
Right. Cam sensor. And you work on old stuff, look. And you get dirty.
No
This
gloves.
mate, this doesn't happen on my bike. My bike's spotless.
That's it.
Right, that one's off. I need to get that coil off.
Let's have a quick shot of your bike.
With
Press
wings on.
Let's
It's
have a
up
look.
for sale if anyone wants to buy it. So thank you
We
to
have the
PCR
new
for
wings.
sorting the fairings out.
Very nice. Yes, that was thanks to PCR.
Yeah, and Alan Gardner from Rich Energy, so they sorted me out some fairings, which is cool. So it'll be sold with black fairings now, so I haven't got to sell like my painted ones. Right, mate, I think if I take that bar off, we is just about there. So that's just a support rail through the centre of the frame to stop it flexing.
Yep.
Because you'll hear a lot about that now these days. Like, so they're at the minute now in like World Superbikes, they're talking about things like called super concessions. So the rules are really limited to what you can do in production racing. So it's not like MotoGP where you've got, even there's rules in MotoGP, but like an open rule book. In World Superbikes and British Superbikes, you've got a strict set of rules, and ultimately it's all based around the bike being homologated for use.
Yep.
So how the factory built it. But where they're fighting to try and keep the manufacturers, because at the end of the day you want everybody fighting for wins, they're allowing super concessions now. So they're allowing certain things to be done to the Honda and the BMW to give them advantages. So a lot has been made recently of BMW changing swing arms.
Yep.
And that's because the feeling from the riders was that the bike spins too much. It doesn't sort of, when you're trying to drive on like a 3/4 tyre, it doesn't like hook in. You can't get like the tyre to dig in.
Yep.
And that's all around what they've said, or what they think is all swing arm flex, which is why now like Scott Redding has got on this new swing arm.
Okay.
To try and help, which is why then his results in the middle of the season made a big jump. So Honda are the same sort of thing. Honda have asked for a super concession around some of the chassis geometry, so that they can get the bike in a window they believe it needs to be to keep up. So this is where now like you start looking at things, how like Toprak for example has massive bracing down his frame because he puts so much pressure through the front of the bike on the brakes. The stock frame can't take it. So what you'll start seeing now is, if it helps the boys at World Championship level, Yamaha will implement it on the road bikes.
Okay.
So it's in the rules for next year. It's homologated.
So there's your filter down to the road bikes.
Yeah.
Angle,
Yeah. The only other sort of challenge I see, like things like BMW having, is everybody's using Magneti Marelli electronics, which is like a standalone ECU, but BMW don't. BMW use their own. A little bit like Honda were in MotoGP for a while. They believe that it has more value to them developing their own calibrations in their own firmware than it does by using a Magneti Marelli ECU that me and you are never going to use, never going to see. So I think at times BMW have been sort of limited by that. Right. I think. So I've got all 4 lower injectors off. Fuel. I've got this bit of loom, that bit of loom. What have I got down here? Gear position sensor. Need a quick shifter. Be close, mate.
It's a big jumble of wires.
It's a mess, mate. Yeah. One at a time. Don't force it, don't tear a connector off or pull a wire out of a plug or... Right, that is that. I've just got to get one more wire out which is the starter motor wire, but it's under me bloody, it's under my water pump, so I might just take it off here a sec.
Yep.
So this is a starter solenoid. So you've obviously got battery in, starter solenoid, and then the power cable to the starter. So I can't get on the thermostat housings in the way at the minute, so we'll just literally do that. Take the bolt out. Pop that back on.
So, obviously the viewers are going to know you mainly from working on supercars.
Yeah.
Now, we've introduced the whole bike thing and the fact that you've raced for years.
Yeah.
And still do when you get the opportunity. So,
Try to.
how long have you been working on bikes, building bikes?
So I've been working on bikes since before I was working on cars, so I was a kid. So I rebuilt my Honda Vision in my living room when I was like 16. And that's where that started. I built, what have I done? I started racing 08, so I always sort of looked after my own bikes. I always had road bikes, so I was always, and because I was a mechanic, you kind of got into it yourself. So I had like, what did I have? Honda Vision, CB250N was my first proper bike. Then I had RVF 400, which was called an NC35, which is where my race number come from, so which is 135.
Okay, yeah.
Then I had an SV650, which spent more time on its back wheel than it did on anything else. I could wheelie that thing
For fun.
forever. Then I had a yellow ZX6, so that would have been a 52 plate, the big bulbous one. Then I went to a ZX6 B1H. And then I sold that so me and Kate could buy our first house. So I sold that, and my car my granddad gave me, I sold that, bought our first house. So that would have been 2000, end of 2006, start of 2007. And I, through my friend James, or Jimmy, me and him were like, yeah, we just used to go everywhere on bikes together. And we went to the TT for basically a stag do. He was like, oh yeah, let's go to TT for a stag do. So a load of us went. So this was 2004. And we ended up staying with a guy called Stuart Crane, who's you know still a friend of ours to this day. There's a story there as well. And we stayed in Isle of Man. So we went over and we stayed there. We stayed there 2 years in a row. So we stayed 2004, 2005. And rightly or wrongly, because at the time you sort of me and James just treated it like a TT.
Yeah.
Oh mate, that was back in the days before GoPros and drift cams. So I had an old, sharp video camera.
Yeah.
Right, that took tapes.
The old DV tapes.
Yeah. I made a frame that went from my fuel tank filler to the head to the bolt here, a metal frame. And I would mount the camera on the frame, and then I had a tank bag with the front cut out, right? So we've got videotapes of me and him on this. So he had a 1998 R1, and I had this ZX6. Oh mate, they were hilarious. So we'd end up going out, doing like mountain run after at the TT, going back to Stuart's house at night, getting on the beers and watching his videos over and over again. And Stuart's like, oh mate, you need to race. And I had a kid, I didn't at that time, but I was like, I was a kid. I didn't have any money to go racing.
Yeah.
And then 2008, Stuart rung me from. It's the first left-hander at Northwest. I can't think of the corner name of it. He rung me from there. He's like, listen to this. And he's like, mate, you need to go racing. And I'm like, Stuart, I can remember it now. Me and Kate. Callum was a baby. We were leaving a house to go out in a car, and I was trying to strap Callum in the car seat, and Stuart's like, we should go racing. Yeah. And I'm like, mate, I've just had a baby, I can't afford to go racing. He goes, I'll sort it, I'll pay for it. And I'm like, yeah, no worries. So I went out Monday, and he rung me Monday. He said, what's bank details? He sent me 10 grand.
Whoa.
He sent me 10 grand. He goes, go and buy a bike.
Yeah.
Go and get your license sorted, let's go racing. So 08, my first race meeting was Donington Park. Yep. Right, and this is where I met Deo. This is a fun story, right? So this is the first time I met Deo. So I did my license, joined NG road racing club, what used to be called North Gloucester, and I was quick on the roads.
Yeah.
And I turned up I borrowed a van off a boss at work. I had this black B1H ZX6. I had black levers, mate, proper Billy, like at the back. And I turn up, and it was a test day. Yeah, it was a test day on the Friday. It was Derby Phoenix on the Saturday, and it was North Gloucester on the Sunday, right? So we go there, and I'm on the test day, and I'm sort of a proper wobbling round, but at the time you think you're like fucking Rossi. And I overtake this Deo. He had Deo on the back of his levers. He had R6s, and he had Deo on the back of his levers. Yeah. And I'm like, these boys are getting it tomorrow. If he's supposed to be like the kiddie, he was like, everybody was talking about him. So anyway, the Saturday came, we got to qualifying, and like, Deo's pole, and I'm back of the B final. I'm equivalent of like 75th. So it's like 40 on one grid and the rest on the other. I was back row to B final, mate. Yeah, I'd been following his brother, Ali Day.
Oh, right.
So it wasn't even Deo.
Yeah.
Mate, so the Saturday, I can't remember where I finished. Wasn't even worth remembering. The Sunday, I got in the A final. Right? And it might be Lee Tyack, who turned into a client of mine. He lived around the corner from me. I have to double check the results. Deo lapped me on a third lap.
No.
Donington Park.
Yeah.
Third lap, mate, he come past me into Old Hairpin, and if it was Lee Tyack, Lee was on his ass. And I was like, okay, this is a different level now.
Yeah.
So I've done a couple of meetings in 08. I didn't really get on with the ZX6, or rather, everyone was on R6s, everyone was on Yamahas. And I was getting beat by Yamahas. So at that point, you think, well, if I get a Yamaha, I'll be faster. So I sold my ZX6, I bought an R6. Stuart helped me again with the new businesses he was in 09. So I'd done like 3-4 meetings in 09, in 08, 3-4 meetings in 09. And the new sponsors or the new company you work for kind of liked the idea. So in 10, I did a full season. That was my first full season. So I won, NG Championship, and I've done a couple of rounds of Supersport as well. Like finished 19th in a pouring rain at Silverstone. Like that's the worst race I've ever been in.
That's got to be sketchy.
That was a race Hutchie nearly lost his leg. So he come off the back of 5 on a row at TT. We went Silverstone. Honestly, mate, I was left at back. But like by the time I crossed under start finish straight, you couldn't see what was in front of you. Pat McDougall's bike come past my head, mate, at turn 1. There was no luck. That was just luck.
Yeah.
There was nothing else involved in that. So if you go back and look at that, Silverstone 2010 crash, and you look, it was like a fucking bomb went off. It cut Pat McDougall's bike in half. It cut Hutchie's leg in half. That was horrific. 2011 then, I'd done more at British, and then sort of end of 2012, I kind of like stopped for a bit. Just money, mate.
Yeah.
So people don't realise how expensive it is. I think in those, it's thousands. Like, do you know what I mean? However much I love it, it's, but
and it's commitment as well, isn't it? You're away a lot. You're testing. It takes over your life.
Yeah, like at that point, I mean, all right, I had a full-time job, which was fine, and I just took holiday. So I was working for Ron Aslam, Focused Events. I was racing. I was like on a bike every weekend, and that was when I felt best. But you're a kid, so you make silly decisions or silly mistakes.
Yeah.
That's why now, when it's stuff like Mikey Hardie coming through and stuff like that, you realise that you just want to be there for him, because that kid doubled at the weekend at Donington. So he back-to-backed. He rode his ZX6, which was here the other week. So we sponsored his ride with another sponsor, so he could double up. Mate, that kid's going places. Like, he's like Deo.
Well, it's good to be on the other side of the fence now, where you provide the sponsorship and you're helping the up-and-coming guys.
Yeah. That's it. So, right, that is loom out. I think there's a couple of bolts to take the engine out. But I turned it over the other day. Let me find his socket, because I think it's a 14. But it turns over. I had to smash the rec off the bloody thing. So it does turn over. So doesn't seem seized up. It's obviously we've got damage. I wouldn't want to run this crank, and we've obviously got to address the broken crankcases. So if you come around here, mate, you can see what it's done. Look, it's done that damage, broken here.
Yeah.
So we've had, but to be fair to some people, like I've had Paul Messenger reach out and go, oh mate, I've got fairing for him. So Paul's like, we've got fairings. I've had Andy Forbes Buckingham, who runs AFB. So I've raced against Andy's rider, Popey, for years. He's like, mate, I think I've got crankcases for you. We've had Paul Curran at PCR turn around and say he thinks he's got a crank, because obviously they run Brad Ray, they run ONG, so they think there's a crank kicking around. So yeah, we've had loads of people messaging already saying they'd love to be involved. So
Awesome stuff.
yeah, we need to find a rad.
Yep.
Broken stuff, I need to find a rad. I need to decide what I'm going to do with this engine. Probably we'll try and find a subframe. And I will probably over the next couple of days now put the peg stands on, get the subframe off, and get Josh the wheels, the forks, and a few other bits. But yeah, I mean, we're getting there, mate. We're getting there.
Happy days.
We'll catch everything on on camera like we have been.
Good stuff. Right, bud.
So yeah, see you on the next one.